Hey guys, happy Monday. I'm actually taking this over the weekend because as I said, I'm going to be traveling on Monday and then again on Wednesday I'll be traveling. So I'm going to make this video. I might have my Tuesday video in the same outfit because I might just do them both at the same time. And then on Tuesday, since I have some downtime, I might do a little vlog of like what we did on Monday for Wednesday. And then we get back on Wednesday, I'll prep for Thursday weigh-in and also have some of our concert stuff and stuff like that. So I can't bring my actual camera to the concert, but I can use my phone. So I'm just going to constantly email myself the videos as I take any video. I don't believe I can actually take video of the show itself, but I might get some pictures. So we'll see. Yeah. So today I want to talk about trauma and how it affects your weight. It's really easy to look at people and say, oh yeah, you went through some stuff, but that's just an excuse. And to an extent, yes, it is. But there's a couple of issues in this, okay? The first thing is going to be a lot of people who've been through childhood trauma need counseling. Unfortunately, as I recall, either late in the 80s, early in the 90s, this big move started happening where they started closing state hospitals for mental health. They started more and more psychiatrists, psychologists got out of the business, retired, and people weren't signing up to become counselors. So it's very difficult to get into a good counselor. Where I live, there is the counselor I see, he can't write medication. So he has to work with my doctor and ask my doctor if she could please prescribe medication and explain for what. My doctor is not a psychologist. So that's why all I have is once a year they write me out a script for Xanax. I don't take it all the time because I don't need it all the time. There was a time in my life when I did, but now I'm at a kind of a maintenance point where I have it just in case something goes really, really wrong. I have got my panic attacks down to specific situations that are just out of control. So I rarely have to take them. I do still get anxiety. Like I said on other videos, when I start talking really fast, I'm having an anxiety day. Like I can't, could I take a Xanax? Yes. Do I need it at that moment? No. So if I talk fast on a video, I'm super sorry, but I'm not going to take Xanax just because I'm a little bit anxious and talking fast. Like I will take it when I am shaking and in a ball and crying. And probably not much before then. And that rarely happens. Not often at all. But it's taken me a number of years to get there, but it's taken a lot of really good counselors to get me there. So to some extent, the fact that we have a number of people who are having issues with food related to trauma in their life is not that surprising. They have nowhere else to go. A lot of counselors, because there are so far and few in between, don't accept, low income insurance like Medicaid or even Medicare. A lot of counselors don't take that, and our elderly definitely are in desperate need of counseling services as they get older. There's a lot of stuff that happens. They go through their own kinds of traumas, and I think it's really sad that we just don't have those services available for our elderly either at an easy access. Now, there's been a ton of studies. I mean, I could list studies for hours. Dr. Malady did a study. He did about 1,500 people in his study, so it's not a huge study. But he found that 55% of that 1,500 random people that he did had childhood trauma that had severe obesity. There was another one, I can't remember who this doctor was, but he only studied 286 people. He came up with 50%. Then there was an ACE study that was done by Kaiser Permanente. The ACE study did 17,000 patients. And out of those 17,000 people, they had a number of people. I'm trying to find the percentage right now. I had looked it up and now I can't find it if I shot it. But I believe his was right around 50-55%. So it's averaging that 50%. That's just obesity. That is not including people who have anorexia, bulimia, stuff like that associated with trauma. So I would say the number of people with food-related issues due to trauma is about 70%. And, if you add in anorexia, bulimia, that stuff. Obviously, the studies are all averaging between 50 and 55%, which is a pretty reasonable gauge on the psychology scale. You know, when they did the ACE study and they did 17,000 people, you know, there's over 70 different studies that are out there, and all of them are about the same. They're kind of like reading verbatim. You've got physical abuse, mental abuse, and the other kind of abuse that I'm not going to say because YouTube pulled my video, but y'all know what it is when adults are really inappropriate with children. You know, and that's why one of my videos I made earlier was very much about how if you're overweight and you need to lose weight, the number one thing you can have in your weight loss toolbox is a counselor. Even if it's, you know, just like what I go to, which is a counselor can't write scripts. It's just a counselor you go and talk to. But make sure it's not a yes man. Make sure it's something's going to push you, force you to think about things, force you to deal with things. Somebody's going to be right up in your face and be like, you got to get through this. Because if you don't have that, and you just have the counselor that goes, well, how does that make you feel? And you can just lie to them, because trust me, I've had them. Those will not help you. Those counselors just ask you how you feel about things and just move on are not the kind of counselor you want. If you currently have that counselor, find a new one. You need a counselor who's going to make you deal with your issues, because you can get surgery, you can get a gastric sleeve, you can get gastric bypass, you can go on some miracle pill that makes you lose a whole bunch of weight. But here's the thing. Like the miracle pills, when you get down to your bottom weight, if you haven't developed good eating habits and exercise habits, you're going to gain it back. And if you have trauma that's causing you to eat more, eat not enough, eat and throw up, like whatever it is that it makes you do, without you even realizing that's what's happening, you're going to fail. But here's the thing. If you know you've had childhood trauma and you refuse to get counseling, and you know your counselor sucks and you know you're playing with them and you think it's funny, I was that person, y'all, so I'm not judging. I used to be that person. You're not going to get the help you need, and you are going to fail. Like, it is an outright, you can like open the box and see the answer. It's very simple. You have to be willing to do the work with your counselor. You have to be willing to say to your counselor, you know what? This is how I'm feeling. This is what's going on. This is what happened to me. They need to give you tools to deal with that stuff. Because even though you don't realize that, you think, I've been fine. Like, I dealt with that. I'm good. You're not, unless you've been to counseling, really good counseling. Because I will tell you right now, okay, as a child growing up, there was so much loss in my life, and I felt like my life was so out of control. And I didn't, my dad was there, my mom was there, everybody was around, and I was little, I was like 4. And suddenly I was in a vehicle being taken to Connecticut, didn't know where my mom was. My dad was with me, I think. I don't really remember all of this. I'm telling you what I'm told. Because I had a block of a lot of memories from like 10 and below. Like everything in my mind was blocked out. And suddenly my dad was gone too. And so I had my mom and my dad were both there, and then mom and dad were both gone. And when I talked to my mom and talked to my grandmother and talked to my father about it, my father doesn't like to talk about that time, which is fine. He has his own issues, it's fine. But when I talked to my mom's story is that she was at work, I was at daycare, and somebody picked me up from daycare and drove me to her grandmother's house. She says that my grandparents came down and got me, okay? My grandparents say that my dad had me and drove me to Connecticut and dropped me off. I don't honestly remember. I mean, who really remembers a lot of when you're 4? If you do, you're amazing. I'm 40 years past that now. Technically 25 in my mind, but as of Monday, 40 years past that. I was like 4. I think I turned 5 just after I was brought up to Connecticut. But I went from having both my parents and life was normal to life was completely out of control. I sort of knew my grandparents, but I didn't know them. So I was with kind of sort of strangers, and they were telling me what to do, and I had a room, and things were confusing. My aunt and my uncles that were teenagers, it was drama because, now there was this little kid in the house, and sometimes they liked me and sometimes they didn't, which is typical of any sibling group. But I always grew up feeling they were my siblings. Like, that's how it felt because they weren't that much older than me. It wasn't any different than a menopause baby, where your kids are kind of a little bit older, like high school, and then, hey, look, there's another one, It's kind of how it worked out. And in school, I never knew who I was. I could never, whereas everyone else knew who their mom and their dad were and they had a good foundation of who their family was, I never felt safe. My grandparents wouldn't adopt me because they said they wanted my dad to still be my dad because they were my dad's parents. And I would say my dad will be fine with you adopting me, just adopt me. And the reason I would beg them was because I wanted stability and I never felt like I had it. And I mean, in 8th grade, I had a nervous breakdown. I was almost hospitalized because I just couldn't, I never had a sense of self. I could never figure out who I was. After I had my nervous breakdown, did I go off the rails a little bit? Yeah, totally. I lied. I did stuff I wasn't supposed to do. Like, I mean, I didn't do anything horrible. Like, I wasn't going out having sex with people or sleeping around. But I was still just doing things I knew they wouldn't particularly want me to do, just because I wanted to see if they'd get mad. I wanted to see if they'd kick me out of the house. Like, that's what I wanted. I wanted to get kicked out of the house. I mean, my whole life, I saw my mom once or twice. Saw my dad, like, when I graduated 8th grade, I think is when I saw him. I saw my mom's dad a couple times. I mean, I can count on one hand. I can remember one year I had a Christmas pageant at church, and my mom's sister had sent me a Christmas present for like the first time ever from Japan, and she sent me this silk dress and pantyhose. And I was so excited about having pantyhose because I had never had pantyhose before I was like 10. And I remember this because it was like so important to me. Like, I had this beautiful silk dress, and that's what I was going to wear. And then my grandfather called and said he wanted to come visit. And at the time, if any of y'all in your 40s and you're girls, you might remember there were these little dolls with like Barbie doll hair. They were called like Glamour Gals or something like that. Well, he told me he had found a bucket of Glamour Gals, and like a gift bucket, and that's what he was bringing me for my Christmas present. And he had to bring it over that night. So I said, okay, that's fine. I was supposed to have a Christmas pageant, but I won't go. And I refused to go to the Christmas pageant until he came. And I sat there all night at the big picture window waiting for him to come. And he never came. And I never saw him again. At first, I was concerned maybe he was dead. But, when you're 9 or 10 and you really want this present you were promised, your other thing is, well, did at least drop off my gift? Like, and of course, that never showed up. And years later, though, I actually met somebody who was friends with his wife's daughter, who was my age. His wife's daughter was 10 at the time, 9, 10. And she remembers his stepdaughter getting a whole bunch of these little dolls and how they thought they were kind of weird. They just kind of like cut their hair and did stuff to them. And it broke my heart even as an adult years later, finding out that he did have some of those, but instead of coming to visit me and bringing them to me or dropping in the mail or any of that, he just gave them to his stepdaughter and she destroyed them. Like, it still bothers me. It doesn't bother me now. Like, I don't want to say it still bothers me, but I still think how stupid. I mean, he's passed on, bless his soul, he's whatever. But, I never really built a relationship with him. I wanted to so badly. As an adult, I had a really hard time forming those bonds. And, after I had my 2 kids, I was working on losing weight because I had 2 kids 18 months apart. My daughter was a C-section. So I thought I was pregnant with my son before they would let me go back to working out and losing weight. So I gained a lot of weight with my pregnancies, and that was whatever. After my son was born, I started putting them in a stroller and walking the base because my ex-husband was Navy, and I'd walk the base with the kids in the stroller. And I was walking every day, and I was losing weight, and I was doing well. And it just like, it seemed like whenever something would happen, like my ex-husband was abusive. And before, with my daughter, when I got pregnant, I was in college, and a friend of mine stopped by the college dorm and said, hey, can I hang out here? I'm waiting for some friends. We're going to a party. And I was like, sure, no problem. So he came in and without my permission did some things to me with a sharp, pointy kitchen object. Sorry, I'm not going to have this video pulled because I think it's important for people to hear, for someone to hear. And that's how I got my daughter. And so after that, I had pressure from my family, to put her up for adoption. And I couldn't do that because I didn't know who my parents were. And I couldn't imagine doing that to another child because it hurt me so much. And I wouldn't trade it. She's wonderful. She annoys me sometimes, but don't all kids. She's 25 now, and I'm very proud of her and who she's become. And then when my husband, the guy who became my husband just before my daughter was born, was a guy that I was friends with on the base and convinced me that he cared about me and he wanted to marry me. And so I decided, you know what, the only way I'm able to keep my child is if I marry this guy. And I didn't really know him. And out of this fear of being pressured into doing something I didn't want to do, which maybe wouldn't have turned into anything. But I didn't wait to find out, because in the past, when there's been pressures like that, I've had to give in. And this was one time I wasn't willing to give in. And now I think everybody's thankful I didn't, because they all love my daughter dearly. But, I mean, I think they do. I don't know. I don't talk to any of them. Yeah, there's some story for you. But at the time, I felt like my only option was marrying this guy. So I did. And my grandmother hated the idea so much, I was sewing my own wedding dress, and she bought me black fabric. She didn't like him. She wouldn't have liked anybody. She never liked anybody I dated. It didn't matter who it was. They sucked. And so it just really, that was something that had gotten on me. And, being with an abusive husband after all of that, plus other stuff that happened in my childhood that I'm not going to go into details of, only because there are some people from back home that know me, that know people involved, and I don't want certain things to come out if I didn't say it back then, and I'm not going to be accused of being a liar now. So we're just going to put it that way. And yeah, so once my ex-husband, at the time was my husband, started with the pushing and the shoving, my self-esteem went to nothing. So then I stopped trying to work out. And then my kids about 2 and 3. And I got bit by something, and we still don't know what it was. They said it could have been a brown recluse spider, whatever. I was standing in, we'd gone to church, went to Walmart, and my tongue started to swell. So my husband at the time drove me to the hospital, and literally my body was swelling so fast my skin was tearing open. We didn't know what bit me. We couldn't find a bite. Like, we didn't know what it was. So they were just sticking anything they could to stop the allergic reaction into me. And then finally it went down. They stuck me on prednisone, a steroid, and some special allergy medicine that was like stronger than like Claritin and all that other stuff to take. And when I went off the steroids, I had gained, because now they say you have to do a 5-day spurt. Back then, I think they had me on it for like 6 months. And I gained quite a bit of weight in that 6 months. They're like, oh, it's okay, it'll just come right off. Well, then I had another allergic reaction, so they put me on it again. But this time they did it for like 10 months. So all in all, I was on prednisone for like 16 months. And I went from being like a size 16, 18, to like a solid size 24, 26, easily. And then I just stayed there. After that, I couldn't lose the weight, and no matter what I did. I was working out. It wasn't working. Was I probably still eating wrong? Oh, I'm sure I was. At one point I was working 3 jobs. I was barely eating. And if I was eating, it wasn't healthy for sure. Because I was a single mom at that point. And then I got remarried in 2004. And I'd been with the guy for a couple of years, and I thought everything was good. And I don't know what it is about pieces of paper with these 2 guys. My ex-husband was great until we got married. Then he started being a jerk and like pushing me. He got arrested once by the cops, my first ex-husband. And then the cops let him go tear up my house when he was arrested for beating me up. Yeah, it was great. And then the judge let him pay $100 and make the court case go away. Gotta love Southern Georgia. But anyhow, that's what it was back in the early 90s. Just is what it is. Mid-90s, late 90s, somewhere around there. But anyhow, so in 2004, I got remarried. Thought this guy was great. He had been married before. His wife had cheated on him and not treated him right. So I thought, okay, this guy's safe. Well, we were married for like 2 years. I started noticing some weird stuff. And I had started going to the gym, and I still wasn't losing weight. My doctor couldn't figure out why, and it was just frustrating. And then in 2007, I found out that the whole last 2 years of our marriage, my ex-husband was cheating with anything that walked. And I thought, you know how much that hurts. Here I am working all day, coming home, cooking dinner, cleaning the house, doing everything. All he had to do was go to work and come home. And he was still cheating. And that hurt me really bad. And so finally I left. And I said, I'm done. I'm not doing this. And I was only working one job. I literally made like 26 cents too much to get food stamps. And in Connecticut, it was an all or nothing state at the time. I don't know if it is now. But I was working 40 hours a week, making like $12 an hour. Half my pay was going to rent. The other half was going to food and the other bills. And it was just ridiculous. And I was barely making it. And then my ex-husband popped out of the woodwork again, the first one. I know it gets confusing. It's just, yeah, I make some bad choices in my life. And he was telling me how, sorry he was about the way he treated me. And he asked if he could come see the kids for Christmas. And he said, I know I haven't been around and I feel bad. I have been to a lot of counseling and I understand what I did to you is wrong. What I haven't done for them is wrong. And I want to try to make it right. So I was like, okay. So he came out for Christmas and ended up telling me how much he loved me and all this other stuff. He said, just move to Colorado with me. We don't have to be together, but let's raise the kids together. We'll get you out of this place. I know you're struggling. Like, let's just not struggle. I can help you get a good job. So I decided it was a great idea. So I moved to Colorado. And at first things were great. When we were just living together and everything was good, everything was great. Like, there was no violence, there was no yelling, there was nothing. It was just kind of the happiest time forever. Like, the happiest time I ever had. Because, we went out and did fun things. Like, we went to games. Like, we went to, what do you call it? Like, hockey games and lacrosse games as a family. And we did a whole bunch of really fun stuff. And I'll go into the rest of it in part 2, which will be on Tuesday. So, see you then. Bye.